object. Okay. Then we want to use for the connection. After that, we can perform our task, the command, isn't it? Electrolyte. Then parameter classes. That also there are three types of parameters: SQL parameter, OLDB parameter, ODBC parameter. Okay, already you want to remember we had the three type of managed provider. Under that, okay, then they had a hierarchical ways. They are command, data adapter, and transaction. Then if you SQL, then it's composed SQL transaction, SQL adapter, SQL connection. That's like then here also SQL parameter, OLDB parameter, ODBC parameter. Okay, that also we are going to use for our program. These objects are okay. These are the objects. You use the parameter object to pass the parameter to a command object. The command object you can pass that parameter. Then we need for that parameter classes. Okay, then if you here we are using for the object to pass, like the object means the class. Okay, in the database we call that the object. So one table is the one of the object. One row is the object. Okay, but in C# we call that object is a class. It has a properties, methods, everything is there. Therefore, we call that a class. Okay, now we are used for the database and use the programming language and make the application, database programming application. To interact, easy to interact the user. Already I mentioned that is if you develop the database also, it's hard to use that without the application program. If you open that one table and enter, some table has the relation with the others. Then you want to enter, open the two tables, like then you want to enter the data. It is very difficult. Therefore, we want to make the application program. Very easy to use that database. Okay. Now you can use the parameter to pass the value to SQL statement or store procedure code. Okay. Then you can store the multiple parameters object in the command object through the parameter collection object. Okay, you can use the multiple parameter object and in the command object through the parameter collection object. Okay, then parameter collection object. Then we can use the SQL parameter collection. That also three types. You use the parameter collection object to store the multiple parameter object for the command object. You can store that multiple parameter object in the for the command object. Now we come for the DataReader class. There are three DataReader. It also depends for the database. SqlDataReader, OLDB DataReader, and ODBC DataReader. It is depend for the database. Three type. You use the DataReader is going to read the record row. Okay. Then you use the DataReader object to read the row, retrieve from the database using for the command object. Okay, we need the command through the command object. You can read the record. That's why you need for the DataReader object. Read for the class. Sorry, record row. Okay. The DataReader object can only be used to read row in a forward direction. Okay, already I mentioned in the managed provider, it has a read for the record in the forward direction only, not backward direction. Okay, DataReader object acts as the alternative to the DataSet object. Okay. Now we are going, that is a DataSet object. Object is a generic data. This is the common for the any other three data managed provider. Okay, this is a common. Okay, you cannot use the data reader to modify the row in the data. Okay, the data reader is only read for the data row. Okay, no any modification. But reading row using the data reader object is typically faster than read to the data set. Okay, you want only read the data. Okay, you want to retrieve the data and read the data, then you can use for the data reader. It is the fast. But the data set, if you use the data set, you can read the data and write the data also. But it is slow compared to data reader. The data reader is the object is the typically faster than reading from the data set. Okay, the data set also one of the object. This is the generic object. Generic object. Now data adapter. Okay, there are 3 adapters. Now you can think about if you have the connection, then you need for the data adapter to adapt your that database. Okay, like as the electricity, if you have the holder, then you only need for the adapter to get the connection to use that current. Then sir, like as here is a data adapter class. There are 3 types of data adapter. It also depends for the database. SQL data adapter, OLDDB data adapter, and ODBC data adapter. Okay, SQL data adapter, OLD data adapter, and ODBC data adapter. Okay, you use the data adapter object to move row between the data set object and database. Okay, already connection is there. I want to retrieve the data. Therefore, we need for the data adapter to use that data. Okay, move to the row between the data set object and database. Okay, then if you use the data set, then locally we store that database in our memory. Locally. Then if you make that any changes, then I want to update that change, then through the data adapter. Update that changes through the data adapter in the database. Then we need for the data adapter object also. You use the data adapter object to synchronize your locally store the row with the database. Okay, any changes happen, you want to update that data. Okay, data in the database. Then we need for the data adapter. Okay, synchronize means there is a, if any changes happen, it is passed to the database. Because the database store in the one of the server, not in your computer. But now we are using here is a standalone computer with the database also. But the usually application is there. The application we have the 3 type of layer already studied. Okay, the database is the different layers, a different computer. Application is another client computer. Then the changes happen in the client computer. Then that changes on the update in the database. Therefore, we need for the data adapter object to synchronize your locally store the data with the database. This synchronization is performed through the connection object. Okay, through the data adapter, but the connection object through the connection object. Because if you only need the connection, connect to the database, then you can update your changes. Then it is a connection. Then if your connection is need, data adapter is need. Okay, if you one time if you connect the database, you can locally store that data in your in your computer locally. Store that data in your computer database. Again, you want to update the database because only that memory, the database is locally stored in the memory in our computer. Some changes, we call that a transaction. If you make any changes, we call that transaction happen. That transaction want to update the database. Then we need for the data adapter through the data connection object through the connection object. For example, you can read the row from the database into the data set through the data adapter. Modify those rows in your data set and then push those changes to database through the connection object. Okay, then if you the database programming, then we need for the 3 objects. You want to connect the database, data adapters need for the data set. Through the data set, you want to get the data. Then 3 objects, minimum 3 objects need. Then after that, if you want to execute the data, then command is need command object. Want to read, then data readers there need. Then many objects we are going to use here. Okay, all are we call for the ADO.NET classes. ADO.NET or ADO.NET classes. Okay, then command builder class. There are 3 types of command builder that also depend on the database. Okay, managed provider. SqlCommand builder, OLDB command builder, and ODBC command builder. Okay, you use the command builder object to automatically generate a single table. Insert, update, delete. These are the things you can use, edit. Then automatically generate a single table, insert and update command to synchronize any changes you make to the data set object with the database. Then command builder, you can use the command builder dot, make the object name, SqlCommand builder as a new command builder dot insert. Then what are the things you want to insert? Insert into a table or something like that, many rows you can insert. Okay, then through the data object, data set. This synchronization is performed through the data adapter object. Okay, then transaction class. These also 3 types of transaction: SQL transaction, OLDB transaction, and ODBC transaction. Already we start study for the transaction. Many statements you can make for the one transaction. Okay, you use the transaction object to represent the database transaction. Okay, the database transaction is the group of statements that modify a row in the database. Okay, then transaction is the group of statement. One statement also you can make one transaction like, but for example, you are going to use, okay, withdraw the money and deposit the another account. Okay, then you use a ATM card, then want to transfer the money to another account. Then 2 things there. I want to withdraw your money to your account, deposit another account. Then 2 transactions going to happen. 2 statement. One is the withdraw, mean edit, update, and other one is the add, insert, new transaction, new things. Withdraw the money and deposit. 2 tasks is there. Then group of statements want to execute. Okay, these statements are considered as a logical unit of work. For example, in the case of the bank transaction, you might want to withdraw the money from one account and deposit into the another account. Then 2 transactions in the banking transaction. Okay, I already mentioned the transaction is anything happen in the database. Okay, update, delete, insert. These are the things happen, then we use that transaction. Okay, call for that is a transaction. You would the commit both of these changes is one unit. Okay, or if there is the problem, roll back both changes. Okay, already we studied that commit and roll back. in the TSQL. TSQL, we study the run section. Committed 10, rollback. Okay, name for the managed provider classes. Then we want to use this managed provider, then we want to import that classes. Then we use the namespace. The managed provider classes for SQL Server, SqlConnection, and so on. Other object was SqlCommand, SqlDataReader, SqlDataReader. That's like we need that the SqlConnection. Then we can import that all classes under that system.data.SqlClient namespace. In our C# program, the database programming, we are using the C#. Then we want to import that data, that object class, that system.data.SqlClient. Under this class, we have that under that class we have a SqlConnection class, SqlAdapter, SqlCommand, SqlDataReader, everything under that line. Okay, system.data, under the system.data, we have the generic classes as a data set. We are going to study for in future now. Okay, few more slides, we start for the data set, generic classes. Okay, these class for the OLDB compliant the database we use for the system.data. Okay, OLDB namespace. Then if you want to use for the ODBC, then system.data.ODBC namespace. It also depends on the what are the database you want to connect, or what are the database you are going to use. Okay, in this our module we are using for the Microsoft SQL Server. Then we use the system.data.SqlClient. Okay, the class for the ODBC, okay, compliant database, then we are using for the system.data.ODBC namespace. ODBC namespace. Now we come for the generic data class. Generic data class. This is the common for the all any other data provider. Managed provider, data managed provider. You can use the managed data provider object to connect to the database through the connection object. Issue a SQL statement through the command object and retrieve the row using the data adapter, the SQL data adapter or something like object. However, you can read row only in the forward direction, and you must be connected to the database. But the generic data object is allow you to store a local copy of the information shown in the database. Okay, then local copy of the database store in our memory, computer memory. Okay, then we are using for the generic data object allow you to store the local copy of the information shown in the database. Okay, this allow you to work the information while disconnect from the database. Okay, sometimes the disconnect the database also you can work for that information, because locally we copy that database in our memory, our computer memory, then the data is there, then you can work. Then finally you want to update that all changes, then we again want to connect to the database. The connection is neat. Okay, so you can read and row in any order, and you can search, sort, and filter those data in flexible manner. Okay, if you use the generic data as a data set, then you can read the any order. You can even make changes of changes to these row, and these synchronize those changes with the database. Now generic classes. The generic data object allows you to store a local copy of the information stored in the database. This allows you to work in information while disconnect from the database also. You can read and row, okay. You can read the row in any order and you can search in flexible manner. Even though you can make changes to those rows, then synchronize to changes with the database also. Now this is the generic data set. What I mentioned, that is the generic data set. Object is the data set. Okay, we want to need the bridge as the data adapter because every changes is happen through this data adapter object. But here is the data set. Is the common for any other managed provider. Okay, there are no name for the SQL data set or DBC. This is the data set. But data adapter is a SQL data adapter. Or that other. This connection is there, SQL connection, OLDB connection like. But here is the data set that has the many object as a data relation collection, data table collection. Under the table, data table. Table has the data view. And that data has the data relations with that. Then the table has the data row collection, that data row. Or column, we can access for the column, then data column collection, the data column. Then data constraint. Okay, we use the constraint, foreign key, primary key, that constraint is there, that under that here. But these are all are in object classes. But these are common for any other data managed provider. Any other managed provider, data managed provider is the common for this data set object. Generic data, we call the generic data set objects. Okay, generic data set object. It has a data set, data relation collection, data table collection, data table, data row, data column. That is the common for any other database. That's a generic data set. Now we come to the dataset class. You use an object of the data class to represent the local copy of the information stored in the database. Okay, now you use the dataset class, then the local copy of the database. Local copy of the information stored in the database. Then you can make the changes to that local copy in your dataset, and then later you can synchronize through the changes with the database through the managed provider as a data adapter object. But the data managed provider depends for the database. But the data set is the common for any other data managed provider. A dataset object can represent the database structure such as the table, row, columns. Okay, other objects are there. You can even add the constraint to your locally stored the table to enforce unique and foreign key constraint also. Unique means primary keys, and foreign key constraint also you can be the class. You can also use the database object to represent the XML data. In fact, the information stored in the data set is represented using the XML, including the information retrieved from the database also. Then you can make for the XML data, represent the object as a XML data also. Now, data table class. You use an object of the data table class to represent the table. And then in your information as the table format. You can store the multiple data table object in a data set through the database data table collection object. Then you can make for the multiple table object in the data. One data set has a multiple data table. One or more table you can keep. One or more table you can keep for the one data set. Then you can make many data set for the one database. Okay, combine to the one or more table. For example, one database has a 5 table. First 2 table has one data set, and other 2 tables, 4th and 5th table has a, sorry, 3rd and 4th table has one database. Set that one, and other 5 with this another data set. Then you can make many data set for the one database. And one data set also has many tables. One or more table you can use different attribute. You can combine, make for the one table. Okay, it won't do. Okay, depend for your application, program application. Sometimes not necessary to retrieve the all data for your application. Only particular column won't need for the retrieve the data. Then we want to make that's a table format. A dataset object has the property name tables, which used to access the data table collection contain the data table object stored in the data set. Then data row, because we want to read that row. Therefore, we need for the data row. You use an object of the data row class to represent the row. Through the rows, you can update or want to delete. You add the new record, then for the data rows. You can store the multiple data row object in the data table through the data row collection object. The data table object has a property name as a rows. Table dataset has a table, that property name as a tables, here is a rows, which used to access the data row collection contain that data row object stored in the data table. Okay, many collection. Then data columns. Same for the many columns we can make for the data column. You use an object of the data column class to represent the column. You can store the multiple data column object in a data table through the data column collection object. A data table object has a property name columns. Okay, you want to access the data some in column wise or row wise, then you can use the property as a name as a rows or columns, which used to access the data column collection contain the data column object stored in the database. Okay, that data table. Then constraint class. You use the object of the constraint class to represent a database constraint that is to be enforced on one or more data column object. Okay, one or data column objects of a data table. Then you can make for the constraint as a primary key or foreign key. You can store the multiple constraint object in the data table through the constraint collection object. Then one table has many constraints, sometimes foreign key and primary key. Some one or more primary key also you can, multiple primary key also you sometimes want to use for the one table. Or foreign key also. Then like you can make many. The data table object has a property name as a constraint. The property name is the constraint, the table properties, which you use to access the constraint collection, contain the constraint object stored in that table. Okay, data view. Now only want to get that record, retrieve the record and only want to view that. Okay, view the table format in your application. Then we need for the data view. You use the object of the data view class to view only specify the row in the data table object using filter which specify the criteria or restrict the rows. Okay, sometimes not necessary for all attribute want to display in the view. Only particular attribute. Therefore, we use for the criteria to restrict the rows and filter. We use the filter method means we are using the where clause and filter the data. Only few attribute we can display, or hold attribute also we want to display. It is dependent on your application. Then data relation classes. Okay, you use an object of the data relation class to represent the relationship between the two data table objects. Okay, what is the relationship? You can use the data relation object to model parent-child relationship between the two database classes. Okay, then if you primary key is there, that's a parent tables, and foreign key is there in another table, and we call the child table, and we call there's a parent-child relationship between the two tables, two database table. Then we need for the data relation object. Data relation object. Okay, you can store the multiple data relation object in the data set through a data relation collection object. Because of multiple data relation means if you one data set has a many tables, then that table relate with the other table. Then we need for the multiple data relation object. A data test object has a property name as a relations, which you use to access the data relation collection constraint, okay, containing the data relation object stored in that data set. Then unique constraint. Okay, this is the primary key. You can use object of the unique constraint class to represent the database constraint that enforce that the value stored in the data column object is unique. Unique means there's a primary key. Note the unique constraint class is derived from the constraint class. Okay, unique constraint derived from the constraint class. Okay. You can store the multiple unique constraint object in a table through the constraint collection object. Because one table sometimes has many, one more primary keys, not in the one primary keys. Then unique constraint also multiple is needed. The foreign key constraint. It is the same, like you use an object of the foreign key constraint class to specify action performed when the column value in that parent table are update or delete. Okay, then we need for the if you parent table anything is here, okay, update or delete is there, then that also won't affect for the other table also, the foreign key table. Then we need for the foreign key constraint. The foreign key constraint class is derived from the constraint class. You can either have the child rows, okay, so deleted, set the child column to null, or set the child column to default value. Then you can make that also constraint. You can store the multiple foreign key constraint object in a data table through the constraint collection object. Then the namespace for the generic data classes. Okay. Then if you are going to use for the generic data classes, then data set is there. Then it's a normalized data set, data table, data row, data column, data relation, constraint, and data view. Classes are all declared in the system.data. Okay, then generic data you are going to only use for the generic data, then you use for the generic data as a system.data under that as a data set, data table, data row, data column, data relationship, constraint, and data view. Okay, these are the classes under that system.data namespace. The previous I mentioned that is a managed provider data, managed provider data classes. It is depend for the system.data. You are going to use the SQL Server, that is a SQL client. System.data.SQL client. Sometimes you want to use the Access or Oracle or other database under that, like system.data.oldb. Open source database you are going to use, then system.data.odbc. Okay, that namespace is you can import. This is the common, I already mentioned this, the system.data, it is common for the any other data base you can use. Okay, then we call this the generic data class. Okay, this namespace contains other class that you can use in your program also. Okay, you can view the full set of class quickly in the system.data namespace using both the .NET documentation. Okay, under the document.NET framework, we use the system.data namespace in the classes. Okay, generic classes under that system.data. Okay, now we study in the classes as the object. These objects are going to use in our program. Okay, 3 type of data provider, managed provider, data managed provider, and one is the generic data classes. It has the many objects classes there, DataSet, DataTable. Because this program, database program, we interact with the table, data row, data information, that is a rows and column. That column belongs for the one of the table or rows. Then many table, we keep it for the data set. One data set. Now we come for the introduction to the database program with the ADU.NET. Now is coming for the programming. We are going to retrieve some data from the database. Retrieve from the database. Introduction to the database programming with the ADU.NET. The database is organized collection of information that is divided into the tables. Each table is further divided into the row and columns. These columns show in the actual information. Okay, that row has the many information. Then each columns has that actual information. Then you access the database using the structural query language SQL, TSQL and SQL, which is standard language supported by most database software, including SQL Server, Access, and Oracle. Okay, that is a little syntax is little different. Some commands are different, but the structure is the same as like we call this a use for the SQL language. It is support for the any other database. Okay, our first program. The developer C# program that connect to the SQL Server database, retrieve and display the content stored in the column of row from the table, and then disconnect from the database. Now we want to connect the database. After our work is over, then we want to disconnect the database. Necessary for connection, we can disconnect. Then now we are going to develop for the first program. The C# program that perform the following tasks. First, want to connect the SQL Server as a Northwind database. We are going to connect to the Northwind database. We only need for the connection. Retrieve the row from the customer table. We are going to retrieve some rows from the customer table. Then we want to use that in the database also. Many tables are there. We are going to deal with that customer table. Okay. Then display the column from the row. After retrieve the data, I want to display then column from the row. After that, we want to close the connection, disconnect the connection. Okay. This is the 4 steps. Now this is the here we already mentioned using system. Now we want to import the system.data.SQL client. Okay. You are using system.data.SQL client. Okay, well, first off, we want to create the SQL connection object. Okay, step 1, create the SQL connection object to connect to the SQL database. Okay, SQL Server, Northwind database. Now we already mentioned there's a SQL, that object as a SQL connection. The SQL connection, this is our name of the object. This is the class mySqlConnection equal new SQL connection. This we are create the one connection object that we use the new keyword. Okay, SQL connection with the connection string. We call this a which database, which server want to connect, and which database. Okay, which database going to connect. This is the server as a local name, and database is the Northwind. Our SQL Server has a Northwind. This the user ID is the who is accessing the database. Then there's a SA, there's a user ID, and password is admin123. Okay, but in our case we are using in our database we are not using the password or username because that's a window authentication mode. Our server is running for the window authentication mode. I will explain how to get the string also. Then we, okay, not worry about that is a username and password. But if you want to authentication is need, then you can use here is a server. It's a server name, but the name of the server that's a local. Yeah, using the same server in our machine. Same machine, then we use for the server as a local database. The name of the database we are going to give. And this is the username and password. Okay, then we call this the connection string. Through the password and username and password, we can access the particular database. Therefore, we use this is the connection string. Then first want to create the SQL connection object to connect to the particular database. Then it is the SQL connection, mySqlConnection equal new. This is the name of the class object, mySqlConnection, new SQL connection. This is the SQL connection string. Okay, therefore we use the double quotation here. This is the connection string, very careful. This is what is the name of the case sensitive. Capital N is there as the name of our database, but it's the name of the database. And username, password, everything is the case sensitive. If you make here a spelling mistake, that's an error. Okay, you are missing here data is A is missed the DTA base, right? Is the error because this is the string. Okay, now we create connect the connection. Okay, after then we want to create the SqlCommand object because we want to retrieve the data, the select statement. Then we only need for the SqlCommand. The second one is to create the SqlCommand object as a SqlCommand, mySqlCommand. This is the name of the object. Is a class, this is the name of the object as a mySqlCommand. Any name you can use, but these identify this is the SqlCommand like we use for mySqlCommand. Okay, you can make without you can use the CO, DO, something, D, mySqlCommand as a SD like you can make. But these to identify, we are going to use the MySQL database, therefore we are creating the SqlCommand. Then mySqlConnection.create command. Now we are going to create the SqlCommand. Now the command is there. After that, you can use that command to execute the statement. Okay, set the CommandText property of the SqlCommand object to a SQL select statement to retrieve the row from the particular table. Then mySqlCommand.CommandText equal. Okay, CommandText equal. This is the SQL statement, select statement. We are going to retrieve the data from the customer table. Okay, customer table. Which are the attributes? Customer ID, company name, contact name, address. These 4 attributes we are going to display retrieve from where clause only particular custom ID this line. Without this where clause, you retrieve the whole data. Okay, now we are going to retrieve that's a SqlCommand.CommandText. Okay, now we want to open that SqlConnection. SqlConnection is there, already create the connection, but want to open the connection. We call this a method as an open method. mySqlConnection.Open. Okay, open method to connect to the SqlConnection object. Now connect to the database. Then after that connection, we want to read that data. Then we need for the SqlDataReader. Then SqlDataReader, mySqlDataReader equal mySqlCommand.ExecuteReader. mySqlCommand.ExecuteReader mean the execute that data statement, select statement. Okay, here is the select statement is here. The mySqlCommand.CommandText is a select statement. Then you can execute. Then here step 5, create the DataReader object and call the ExecuteReader method of the SqlCommand object to run the SQL statement. Okay, now we retrieve the data. Now we execute the reader. The steps time. Okay, 6. Read the row from the SQL reader. Want to read that? Then mySqlDataReader.read. Okay, now you are only reading the record. You want to display that record in the console application, in the command prompt. Then console.writeLine. This is the mySqlDataReader. This is the which attribute. Okay, which attribute want to display the custom ID equal that ID get from the data reader. mySqlDataReader is a customer ID. Then console.writeLine, mySqlDataReader, company name equal, okay, mySqlDataReader, company name. Okay, now we are using that reader object, mySqlDataReader. It is read for that rows. Then here is a mySqlDataReader.read. Now it's reading the record. Then we can display this. Okay, after display, we want to close the DataReader object. Then mySqlDataReader.close. And after that, we want to close the connection also. mySqlConnection.close. Now, close our connection. Okay, this is the way we want to read. Then we want to read the, okay, retrieve the data. First, want to create the connection. First step, want to create a SQL connection. Okay, with the connection string. Then second, you want to create a command because we want to read some, execute some statement. Then we need for the SQL command. Okay, with used to create the command with the mySQL connection. Then we set the text for the which statement we want to execute. Want to execute. Then after that we want to open that connection. And after that we want to read. Then we need for the data reader. Data reader, that task is the read for the record. Then want to create the data reader and execute that reader with that select statement. Now want to read each row. Okay, want to read the row. Then mySqlDataReader.read. Read the row from the SqlDataReader object using the read method. Then that thing we want to display in the command prompt. Okay, the next class we are going to study using the database, okay, database, retrieve the data and display in the window application. It is little different. We are using the text box or label or something like, or data grid view. How to display is the next chapter is going to do that. Okay, after that we want to interact the data. Okay, go move first, last, like that. We want to make that also. Okay, this is the MySQL connection. Now the namespace being referred into the programmer like using system.data.sql client. The system namespace is the root namespace and is referred so that we can simply simple use a console.writeLine call in the program rather than the fully qualified system.console.writeLine. Okay, already system is there, not necessarily console.writeLine is enough. Now the system.data.sql client namespace contains the audio.net class from class for use with the SQL Server, including the SqlConnection, SqlCommand, SqlDataReader, SqlDataAdapter, everything under that system.data.sql client, system.data.sql client. And these are the SQL object we can use. Okay, now you handle the this one I skip that one for the try and catch. Sometimes your connection is failure. You open that connection, it is some errors happen. You want to avoid, then we want to use for the try and catch block. I skip that one here. Okay, create the SQL connection. You use an object, the SQL connection class, to connect to the SQL Server database. Okay, this is the explanation of that all code here. Step in the main method, create the SQL connection object, name as a MySQL connection to connect to the data to the SQL Server Northwind database. Okay, then this string passed to the SQL connection constructor is known as the connection string and contain the following element: server. Okay, you can read database, use ID as a username, account, use account, and password. Okay, these are the things are inside the connection string. Next, note a database administrator is responsible for performing the tasks such as the installing the database software, backing up to the database, so and so. Okay, then the database administrator responds for the give for the password, username, want to create that account to use the particular server. Then create the SqlCommand object. Okay, and send to the select statement to database for execution. Okay, the CommandText property of the SQL object. SQL is industry standard language, support for the SQL like server, access or regular something. SQL statement, select statement for retrieve the information from the database. Okay, this is the explanation is there for what other thing already I explained. Open the SQL connection. Okay, command and run the select statement as the execute the reader. Okay, after the connection, you can execute the reader. Then read the record, mySqlDataReader.read. Using the read the value of the column from the mySqlDataReader by passing the name of the column is square bracket. Okay, mySqlDataReader custom ID. Okay, return the value of the custom ID column. Okay, we'll do that and close the connection. Okay, this is I skip that one because I use the error handling that I skip that. Okay, then okay, open that. SQL Server is running. Don't need that. So okay, I use the new project. Wait. Okay, new project. Yeah, using the console application, Windows console application. Okay, I am not making any name for the project name. Create the console application. Okay, first want to import that our database, sorry, managed provider. That's a using system dot data dot SQL client. Okay. Without this one, you cannot use for the SQL connection, SQL data command, SQL data reader can't use it. Then here using data dot SQL client. Okay, system dot data dot SQL client. Now with the static void main method, first want to create the SQL connection. Then you can type the SQL connection. SQL connection. Okay, then name of the connection. Okay, I use the same name. Okay, I want to check it that what is the name we use. Capital M. Okay. MySQL connection. Capital S and connection, right? Okay, this is the name of the object. Equal new mean create the new object, like that's a new SQL connection with the connection string. Okay, we want to add that connection string because we are using that our database in the window authentication mode. Okay, then how to get that string? Okay, we want a string, put it in here. This is the connection string. Okay, this is the one statement. You go to the tools, connect to the database. Connect to database. Carefully, you see here how to get that connection string. We can type, but sometime we make the mistake. Therefore, I explain here is the tools. The tools connect to the database. Okay, now is a Microsoft SQL Server, SQL client. Okay, then now you can change. Sometime you are using the Microsoft Access data file. Okay, different thing you can change. Oh, what is the data provider? This we are using Microsoft SQL Server. Microsoft SQL Server we are going to use. Okay, server name. This is my server name is the Uruthuran SQL Express. You select server is running. Server is not running. Sometimes your server is not running. Then here not display. Okay, we are using both the window authentication mode. Okay, if you sometimes you provide that username password, you can click here username and password you have to give. Okay, now window authentication mode. Select the database name. I am using for the Northwind. Many other database, my database here, something. Okay. Okay, again also I explain. Now go to the advanced. Here we can use, here this is the connection string. Okay, I copy and put it, cancel, cancel. I put it here. Okay, we want to add the double slash here. Okay, add the double slash. This is the data source, Urutran SQL Express. The initial as the catalog, what is the name of the database? Integrated security is true. We are using the window authentication. Okay, window authentication. If you use that username and password, we are using that server as a local, as the same name, our local server as the same machine as the server, then local, and database as a Northwind, user ID, password. Okay, but this is the string. Now we are using the window authentication mode. Okay, window authentication mode. How to get that one? Go to the tools, connect to the database. Okay, then data source. What is that? Source, this is the Microsoft SQL Server. We are using Microsoft SQL Server. If you want to other thing, you can change. Okay, access. And we are using others. Okay, data provider. We can use the OLDB, ODB is like. Okay, data provider like. Now I use this the SQL Server. Okay, there's a .NET Framework data provider for SQL Server. Okay. Now server name. Okay, sometime different name you can if you use that server, two servers there or someone making the different like this the server name. Wait. Okay, name. Okay, otherwise it should not happen like you can go to that server, you can find the what is the server name. Open that Microsoft SQL Server, okay, Studio, Management Studio, SQL Server, Management Studio. It comes here is the first page, that's the server name. This is the server name. Wait. Here, this is the server name. You can see we have the window authentication mode. SQL Server authentication like we want to password and login and password. Only a particular person can access. Now we are using the window authentication mode, the same SQL Server. This is a name. You can copy and paste there also. It is not appear. Okay, that's like, then select the database name. Okay, or enter. You can type, but we can see there what other is there. Okay, otherwise you can enter, but we make sometimes mistake or spelling mistake or something. Okay, then advanced, we can get this is the data source. This is a connection string. You can copy and paste, that is the connection string. Okay. Okay, now database connection, create the connection, not in the open the connection, only create the connection. First, we want to create the connection. Then second, we want to create the command. Okay, create the SQL command as a mySqlCommand equal mySqlConnection.create command. Want to create the command. Okay, create the command object. SqlCommand. SqlCommand. Name also mySql equal mySqlConnection.create command. mySqlConnection.create command. That's a method. Create command method. Okay. After you create the command, we want to set the text properties. Okay. Set the command text properties of the SQL command as the mySqlCommand.commandText equal. This is the thing I want to copy and paste because very careful. What are the name of the attribute, table, everything. Therefore, I copy and paste. Okay, there's a string. Okay, we can make the one. Okay, I will explain. Okay, then my SQL command dot command text equal is equal. Then copy that string select statement. Okay, this is the one line. Okay, you can make one line. It is not visible to our window. Therefore, I put the plus like it's a many line. Okay, then I remove this one. Is the one statement. Okay, we are going to select customer ID, company name, contact name, address from that customer table. DBO not necessary. Customer table is okay. Customer table, customers. Where close. Okay, where that customer ID equal. That's like this is the one statement. Okay, that statement now create the third steps. Okay, statement is there. We need for the data reader. Okay, next we want to open the connection. After that, we want to create the data reader with the command execute the reader. Okay, execute that statement. Okay, then SQL connection is needed. Open the connection. mySqlConnection.Open method. Okay, this is the method. Open, then we get the connection with the database. Okay, connection with the database. Then going to create the data reader. SqlDataReader as a mySqlDataReader command.execute the reader. Then SqlDataReader. Data reader as a name as a my or any name, that's a name, depend for the like SqlCommand SqlCommand. Okay, SqlDataReader dot execute. SqlCommand, mySqlCommand, sorry. The name of the object, mySqlCommand dot execute reader. Execute now. Okay, execute reader. Okay, first we want to create a SQL connection, SqlCommand, create the SqlCommand, then set the CommandText Property, execute the line. Okay, then you can make the many command, SqlCommand, like one is the select statement, add statement, insert, like you can make that different command. Okay, SQL many command. Many connection also. Sometimes you need to connect the two database, then you can create a new connection, MySQL connection one or some particular name of the database, another database, like that is the thing. You can make connect that one more database also. Then you need the two connection. Okay. Then now it is a readers there. Want to read that reader. Okay. Read the row. Then read method. Now execute the reader, read method. Then SQL data, SqlDataReader dot read. Read method. Now reading. Okay. Then you want to display that data. Okay, you want to display the data in the command prompt. Okay, I copy one. Okay, all are in the one line. We can make this. Okay, I use that. Yes. Sorry. Okay. Then first of all, read line. We can. Okay, now I run this program. Okay, we got the only 4 data. That is the 4 data. Okay, here we use the MySQL DataReader custom ID. This is that customer is the one rows, then 4 record information is there. Okay, we are the one rows, only this the customer ID is the one customer is there. Okay, that's a unique. Then customer company name, contact name, address. Okay, in here we are using this we got that data as a MySQL data reader as a customer ID. This is a attribute name. Attribute name. This is the way we can. After that, we want to get that data. Okay. Sorry. Okay. We want to close that reader. Okay. Stop it. Okay. Close that reader. Okay. MySQL reader dot close Okay, close method and connection also want to close. Close method. Okay, first want to create the SQL connection. Okay, this is a MySQL connection. It's a SQL connection. It's a new keyword we are using. New keyword SQL connection. This is the connection string. Okay, it is the verify in your computer because what is the server name you use. Okay, then if you use your server name with the password, username and password, you have to use this string. Here is a server local database north wing. That's the name of the database. User ID, what is the name of the user, and password also. Okay, but in this case, I use here is the window authentication mode. Window authentication mode. Then data source is this is the name of the server name and initial. Okay, initial is the catalog as a, what is the database. Okay, what is that authentication? Integrated security is true because we use the window authentication. Okay, then the connection is okay. Then after connection, we want to create the command, MySQL command, because we want to execute the statement. Then command is need MySQL command as a MySQL connection.create command. Then set that CommandText property as a select statement. Then want to read that command, open the connection, then read that command with the mySqlDataReader dot SqlCommand.ExecuteReader, read that one. Then after read the record. Execute the, here is execute the statement. Select statement here, read the record and display the record in the command prompt. Okay. How much is there? Now, next class we want to continue for class outline the formula string contain details. Okay. Some other example also there we can use. Okay, with the data adapter and retrieve the data and data set also. Then next class we can use data table. Okay. Next class another one example, and after that we can start to the database window application program. Okay, window application audio.dat program button like okay, some unwanted things are there because now you study in the visual programming, then easy to go to that here. Okay, okay, students. Next class we continue for that chapter 4 and how to use the data adapter and data set and start simple application to that. Then add record, display, delete everything coming for the other chapter. Okay, all quota in the slide also you can try it. Okay. Then now, okay, any problem? Someone chat for 3 chatters are there. What is that? Okay, I will upload for the someone need for chapter 3, download that. Okay, other chapter also I will, the previous chapter also I upload, you can download now from everyone. Okay, someone need for the other chapter. Chapter 1, chapter 2. Okay, if you have any problem, you can discuss. We have the 5 minutes more. We don't know, but the next week, this week, we are all, 5 days we are going to work here. I don't know when that university will start with the students, physical interact the classes. That is different for the government. Government will announce it's okay to start the university. Then we can see it face-to-face physical class. But that is a better for this practical session. Okay, any difficulty you can discuss with me. Now I upload that data and all slides. Okay, already. Okay, now I did that one example also. You can connect the database and do it. Okay. Then, now is that mostly the theory part is over. Like now we are going to do the more practical, and after that you can create a small application. Small application. Okay, any doubt, anything you can discuss? Otherwise, I am going to stop. Next week, I will inform the class. Normally, any holiday, I didn't check the calendar also. If you have any holiday, is it like, but chapter 3. Already I had uploaded the chapter 3. Wait. Wait. I edited something, but chapter 3. Okay. Chapter 3. Someone asked for the chapter 3. Wait. Chapter 3. I want to add to the all. Everyone. File. Chapter 3. Okay. Okay, now upload it. Okay, we had only to finish and we can start for that other part 2. Actually, this is the part 2. Next part 1, we have to start for the system, database system, transaction and some other things. That's the theory part. Okay, students, thank you very much.